I try, but maybe I don't ever wanna put down this life. I could be your best friend, but I can't pick up my phone. Let it ring 'cause no one's home. I'm always judging and degrading. I should stop all that, I'm sure, but I'm just too insecure. I wanna be good to myself, love hard to breathe more, drink less. I wanna be seen at my best, sleep more, be nice, a lot less. All I need is 21 days and I'm fine. January 1, I'ma still need more time. Every single year, yeah, it never fails, I try. But maybe I don't ever wanna put down this life. All I need is 21 days and I'm fine. January 1, I'ma still need more time. Every single year, yeah, it never fails, I try. But maybe I don't ever wanna put down this life.
Start thinking, all the details start to sink in. But I don't care about the right now. Spend the summer in this beach house. 'Cause I will try to play my part. My lies memorized. Conspiracies on TV. I know the truth and it's so simple. Blame it all on stupid impulse. And I keep living out of my head. Just forgive me for my silence. 'Cause I will try to play my part. Memorized in my heart. 'Cause I will try to play my part. My lies memorized in my
Hello there everyone. Hello there Twitch and YouTube and all the rest of it. How are we all? Got an interesting one here, special guest. Welcome everyone, Magnus Panvidya.
Yep, you got it right. You're actually like one of two people to get it right on the first try, so props.
Awesome. Yeah, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Trying not to freeze to death in this winter storm that's destroying my country, but otherwise pretty good.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Although you're in, is it Michigan? So it's usually get quite cold there during the winter, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's particularly bad right now. Right outside the other door, on the other side of that door, there's enough snow that I almost couldn't get out of the house, and I had to like almost force it open. So yeah, lots of fun over here in the States right now.
Yeah, I know. I saw in Texas it was I mean, it doesn't snow in Texas. What's going on there? Jesus.
Yeah, it snows but really occasionally, but it usually doesn't stick. But this is like middle of the country snow in the middle of the desert, which is not usual. Not great.
Yes, indeed. But okay, for anyone who doesn't know of you, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so yeah, my name is Magnus, a kind of lifelong activist on a lot of different subjects. Old school environmental activist, current Boogaloo boy, kind of thrust into the media spotlight because I decided to be the one idiot that made a speech. And kind of just my current objective in the whole world right now is to kind of get the dissonant left and right to work together in America because of how rapidly things are going down the tubes over here and how tribalistic and tribalistic violence is occurring so often and so heated in my country right now.
Right. Yes. So you mentioned there you made a speech that was at the Michigan State Capitol.
Yep.
Yeah. Now that's the sort of, I suppose, the first point of contention. You went there armed, which I mean is an American right, of course. But you went armed in tactical gear to the state capitol. What was the purpose of that?
Yeah, so that whole J17 was an event we actually planned all the way back in, I think it was either August or September, the whole Boogaloo movement. And we picked that day in particular because we knew that no matter who got elected in America, things were probably going to go rapidly sideways, which, kind of exactly what happened. And our whole intention was that is we were going to have marches on every single state capitol across the entire country and invite a bunch of different groups to show up with us to these state capitals. And kind of before that, the FBI got a hold of one of the flyers and assumed we were Trump supporters for some reason and kind of spread like this idea that this was supposed to be like a recreation of the January 6th event and kind of fear-mongered that to where a lot of state capitals, particularly the one I was in Michigan, had like the National Guard and the snipers and military helicopters. And like that's what was going around me while I was giving that speech. But we always viewed it as like a unity event. I know in Ohio, their event, they marched in with local BLM. I know in Kentucky, there was Black Panthers, another black militia named UPG, and then us there. And then in Michigan, I marched in with the local anti-fascist organization organizer and a local BLM protester was standing right next to me. So it was always kind of like this intent of like showing all of these different groups that we had gotten to work together at this point and being like, hey, like this is a moment where we have to kind of put these things aside and start working together and stop all these slap fights over minor political disagreements and kind of focus on what's really going on.
Yeah, but I'm sort of interested in the fact that you went armed specifically, like you were dressed as if you were kind of going to go to war, which seems like an odd choice if you were there for sort of peaceful means, and I'm sort of interested in that. Why you made that choice particularly?
Yeah, so that's definitely just part of the group identity. It's part of showing like, hey, like we are an armed like libertarian group, and there was also like in a couple other states like armed traditional conservative groups that walked in. So it's definitely like part of like the ideology of like, hey, like gun owners and like BLM can like be friends. So there's definitely kind of a messaging and image to that. But there's also a lot of events, particularly in the United States over the last summer. You never know what's going to happen at them, and more often than not, people are armed way more than I think an outside observer would understand because the cameras aren't going around and pulling people's shirts up to see if they have handguns. Yeah. But at most of these events, like there is a startling amount of firearms to where you can see things go rapidly south and become very violent at any moment. So it's kind of this. So on top of the messaging angle of it, there's also the walk softly but carry a big stick kind of thing of like, hey, we're here to talk, we're here to be cool, but don't try anything, I guess would be the way it would come across.
Yeah, but I mean, surely you could understand why, especially given the events of the 6th, because this happened on the 17th, so we're talking after the Capitol Hill thing, why the authorities might have felt it necessary to have a presence on the day, given the war.
Right, and that's fine, and that's totally within the state's rights, and we still showed up regardless, and nothing happened on that day despite almost every single event there being like an overwhelmingly armed protester and police presence. Like nothing happened. So I understand why they would want to show up, but at the end of the day,
Yeah, no, okay. That's fair enough. So, in terms of the speech you gave there, I think a lot of people were surprised by it, given um, what we'll get into later about the Boogaloo Boys themselves. And you stated that you were pro Black Lives Matter and that you were like cool with Antifa and gay rights and all the rest of it. And you can see you've got a weird amalgam of the gay rights flag and the Gadsden flag.
Yeah, that's kind of the flags behind me kind of represent everything I'm about one way or another. So
yeah, but I find it quite interesting because those views don't seem to align with what people generally tend to think of as Boogaloo Boy political opinions and positions and stuff. So I'm sort of interested to hear why you associate yourself with the Boogaloo Boys when so many of them don't seem to hold your opinions.
Well, that's the thing is I feel like the majority of us do hold their opinions because I've been to more events than a lot of people in the movement, and almost every single journalist, like on the ground, independent journalist, almost anyone who studied us and followed us, including like dedicated extremist experts from Washington State University and stuff like that, have all been very clear that we're a libertarian militia. And I know that that word in that political party is very like confusing to a lot of people because they're stuck in this very much left-right binary and they don't really understand outside of that. But the Libertarian Party is we average 3% of the national vote every single presidential election. It's a party of millions of people, and the whole platform is very left-wing things like complete drug legalization, pro-LGBT. Obviously very stumbling over my words for a second. Very, traditional progressive beliefs, but then also on the other side, like extreme Second Amendment, extreme like property rights and stuff like that, to where that party and that ideology exists. And that's what the Boogaloo movement came out of. If you go through the Libertarian Party candidates' presidential tour throughout the entire United States, at every single one of her events, there was a shit ton of people with Hawaiian shirts there because that is our ideology. We're not Trump people. We're not that traditional kind of conservative militia. And if we wanted to be a traditional conservative militia, those groups already exist. So there wouldn't really need to be like this whole building up of image and infrastructure and calling ourselves our own things and everything like that. If we could just go join the Oath Keepers or join the 3%ers or join the Proud Boys or any of these right-wing groups, we've intentionally separated ourselves because our ideology is very different than those people.
Okay, well, you say that the Boogaloo Boys started out of the libertarian movement, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, they started as a 4chan thing on the K forum, which is
the meme, the meme, like the Boogaloo meme, which is I think is where a lot of people stumble across. It's essentially just like a collapsitarian meme. Essentially, if you replace Boogaloo with zombie apocalypse or alien invasion or any form of like societal collapse, the memes make more sense. But the general meme did kind of like bubble out of the K board and then eventually, after like being there for a short period of time, exploded kind of across the entire gun community because it was very much like the Boogaloo in the idea was like when the government tries to come and confiscate firearms, like society will collapse, like things will go to hell. So that's the Boogaloo is like the meme that came out of it.
Yeah, but you can understand therefore, having come from 4chan, why people would be skeptical as to your claims about like being in support of BLM and stuff, because that place is riddled with all manner of horrific neo-Nazis and pedophiles and all sorts.
Well, see, that's a very surreal point that I always like to hit on with people, is a lot of people forget that Anonymous came out of B, which is like they used racial slurs as commas on that board. And yet you'll see a Guy Fawkes mask at almost every single BLM event. And there was not only people in Anonymous that were helping in the Arab Spring and took part in BLM marches and stuff like that, but there was also people that were wearing Guy Fawkes masks that were spamming, epileptic forums with strobe lights and like other awful, horrific shit. But then, like if you look at how Anonymous was treated back then, it makes more sense. But then if you try to apply like it came from 4chan, it's bad. If you go to any single BLM march across this entire country, you'll see a dozen people walking around with Anonymous masks that identify as Anonymous. And that also came out of a worse board on the same website.
Okay, so I suppose it would be good to define terms then. Well, how would you define what a Boogaloo boy is?
Yeah, so it's just a libertarian or anarchist kind of decentralized, no leader, no group, no platform kind of ideology. And the whole ideology is a likely, if not inevitable, collapse of society and armed resistance to the government is essentially just kind of the foundational belief that underpins everything.
Okay, well that's an interesting definition, because I've certainly seen a lot of Trump supporters who would associate themselves with the Boogaloo Boys as well, who clearly therefore aren't necessarily those things in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so that's an important bit of history is as the movement, because like the movement itself came into being with the murder of Duncan Lemp all the way back like within 48 hours of Breonna Taylor for time schedule. And that's when people started like more often going out in the streets dressed in Hawaiian shirts and calling themselves Boogaloo. But it was a very new and fresh movement. So there was kind of everybody was within it. And like there was a lot of people that were wearing it just for the style or because of the meme. And slowly over time, a lot of the conservatives and the Trump supporters got very upset with people like me and people like Garrett Foster and other like leaders in the movement that were explicitly working with BLM and wanted to be friendly with BLM. And there was more and more splits in the movement, and those people kind of started bleeding off to where now if you go on to like the average conservative like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, they have nothing positive to say about us. So it was kind of just like an evolution. And I think that trips a lot of people up because as it coalesced into a movement from just like an idea, there was tons of people that jumped on in the beginning and then eventually slowly left because they didn't stand what we stood for. And the biggest example of that would be Garrett Foster in Austin. He was a Boogaloo boy that was shot and killed protecting BLM protesters. And a lot of the Trump supporters that were kind of like vaguely within the movement were cheering his death on. They're like, oh, you know, Kami, you know, fucked around and found out. He got what he was trying to do. Why is he protecting BLM and stuff like that? And people like me that were friends with him and people that were more, you know, on the libertarian side of this thing like that went after them really hard. And they kind of started leaving the movement slowly but surely to where now like 90% of my Twitter is like, oh, you're just shilling to communists and race baiters, you race traitor. Like there's great like Telegram threads about like how I'm a secret Jewish agent trying to destroy the Second Amendment. Alex Jones infamously called me a CIA asset to try to destroy America. So like the right's opinion on us back in May is very different than like the right's opinion on us like this fall. It's really rapidly changed.
Yeah, you brought up a sensitive topic there of Duncan Lemp, who I think probably a lot of people aren't familiar with. Now, what I'm about to say, just to preface, I'm not saying in any way he deserved to die. That's a disgusting thing. He was involved in was it a no-knock warrant?
Yes. It was a red flag law specifically.
Yeah. But I think there's a distinction to be made between his death and Breonna Taylor's death, and I think the comparison that gets made between the two by the Boogaloo Boys, I think, is sort of trying to all lives matter the situation in a sort of unpleasant way.
I'm interested in why you believe that. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, it would appear, had been engaged in sort of threats against authority figures online as well, in terms of potentially being a assassin or something, like, and he'd been involved in militia groups, and he was in possession of a firearm illegally at the time, right? Whereas Breonna
that's the thing to where nobody, like the police continue to assert that he was not legally allowed to own firearms, and yet his own lawyer and his family say that's not the case, and the cops have already been caught lying about the actual situation multiple times. They infamously said that they had entered into the house, walked into the living room, walked into Duncan's room, and Duncan was standing there with a rifle. They yelled back and forth, and then they shot Duncan. To where it only came out, I think it was like a month ago now, that actually what happened is that they breached through his bedroom window, and then an officer immediately fired and shot him in his bed while he reached for a firearm, and they never announced they were police. So the actual department has been caught lying about the circumstances. So in a normal case, it's a little more he said, she said, but when his lawyer is coming out and has proved the cops have lied multiple times, and his lawyer is saying that there was nothing on his record that would prevent him from owning a firearm, that's a little, I don't trust the cops in that situation. Yeah. And then the whole reason they got the red flag warrant is because he was admitted in the police affidavit, is that he was shown on social media holding a firearm that they thought was an illegal firearm. They thought it was a military rifle that's banned in the United States. It was actually a replica, and it wasn't even his. He went to a private range and was shooting a gun and posed for a picture. So the whole reason they raided his house was they believed that a gun he shot at a legal gun range that isn't even illegal was illegal and was his.
Yeah.
So like the whole circumstances around it are just kind of bullshit, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm certainly very wary of the police. I mean, we know from the Breonna Taylor case they lied. So okay. I mean, well, I suppose we'll have to wait and see. We may never know entirely the full truth because police are lying bastards.
They burn the information, they lie, they obfuscate, they cover their own ass. That's their whole prerogative.
Indeed, yes, indeed so. But okay, so there's a few issues I have with, like, I mean, I was first made aware of you through Jimmy Dore and the interview you did there, which I thought was, frankly, a little bit softball from Jimmy, just to throw a little bit of shade.
That's why I'm actually really glad to be here, because so far nobody's really like asked like hard questions. When you don't have hard questions asked towards you, then people make up the answers. That's why I don't like avoiding like hard questions, because even if nobody's asking me these things, like people are out making crazy conspiracies. Like I think even yesterday somebody said that our movement was created by the Sandy Hook's conspiracy theory guy. That like we were the origination of that, and I'm like, what? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Yes, but you in that interview, when I think the one time he did kind of press you on a thing was about it being the because you believe there's like an upcoming civil war. That's the whole Boogaloo sort of meme, right? When he asked you about it being a racial civil war, you said that was not what you believed or wanted or anything like that. But I think it's pretty obvious from anyone who watches a significant amount of what the Boogaloo Boys are and from the different various strains of it, that there's a very significant racial element to this. And I think to deny that is...
I'm curious where you would come from that, because I think it's very weird of like, especially when you look at groups like UPG, the United Pharaohs Guard, that's a Boogaloo group that's 3/4 black, like inner city, poor, like individuals, and then like particularly our Michigan group is like I think barely like over half white, almost half our movement is minority in this area. And I find it like really weird of why, if that was our intent, why we would go out and get shot and killed and arrested and tear gassed and stuff for BLM. Why wouldn't we just like sit back and watch? Or why would we not do more like very easy to pull off things like just dressing in all black and going to an event and causing violence? Why are we showing up to events in bright Hawaiian shirts and being as identifiable as humanly possible? That's that's kind of the thing I'm curious on.
Yeah, well, this seems to me like, and I can't attest to the numbers you gave there about it being half people.
Like I said, I can send pictures and stuff like that. I got receipts, for all this.
But this, to me, this is the fundamental crux of it, right? And I'm not necessarily accusing you personally, because it's perfectly possible that the things you say about what you believe are true. But my contention is rather more that the Boogaloo Boys don't represent that, and it seems to me that they're prepared to use people either like yourself or ethnic minorities in the same way. It's the same way that the alt-right organised and became quite big online. It's like a loose association of somewhat differing political stripes, and they purport to have sort of vaguely progressive social issues on certain social issues in order to sort of gain better optics than previous sort of fascist movements or whatever. And they hide behind these quote-unquote ironic memes and jokes, as well as like using essentially useful idiots from ethnic minorities, such as like gay or people of colour or whatever people, and push them to the front in order to hide the wider group's sort of ingrained bigotry. It's like the same playbook, it seems to me. It's pretty transparent. That's what a lot of Boogaloo Boys are doing.
Well, that's the thing is like the alt-right never put their money where their mouth is. They just talked about it. You never saw like Richard Spencer getting beat up by police protecting BLM protesters or getting shot and killed. Like a lot of people that I've worked with on the left now have pointed out that if that was our intent to kind of take from that playbook, the need to put our bodily autonomy and our freedom on the line would not be required and wouldn't be something we would want to do. So that's like the thing. Like Garrett Foster literally died. My friend John was just recently picked up. My friend Philip has been sitting in jail for 8 months now. They refuse to give him a trial and they won't give him bond to leave jail because he's part of the movement, and they consider him a threat to the neighborhood, which is kind of surreal and beyond the pale. Yeah. To where like that's kind of my contention on that of like we wouldn't have to do what we're doing if that was our intention. And in fact, there'd be a lot more like strategically smarter and more efficient ways to accomplish that goal than what we're doing. So,
well, this is sort of one of the potential issues is that I think there are a lot of people in the Boogaloo Boys type movements, because again, it's a pretty loosely aligned set of people, and I think sort of intentionally, because I think a lot of people want to hide behind the subterfuge of potentially acceptable political folks, like the stuff that you've been saying,
but I mean, like that's also because a lot of us happen to mysteriously die or conveniently have charges put up against us or get arrested over very minor things. Like my example with Philip Archibald, he got arrested for residue of steroids on a letter he mailed from his house. And that was their context to raid his house. Duncan Lemp, again, like pictures that, that's why the militia movement is very, very, all militia movements, and in particularly us, are very cloak and dagger, because there is tangible historical precedent of people like us or people like the Black Panthers or many other different groups that arm up that get like state aggression put towards them almost immediately, even if they aren't doing anything to warrant that.
Okay, well, I think there's a certain number of the Boogaloo Boys who want, like you say, you call it collapsitarian, right? They want to do violence in a lot of cases, I think. And whether they necessarily support BLM or Antifa or all the rest of it, I think they see it as an opportunity to engage in that kind of almost bloodlust in a sense.
Well, I will be specific that the Antifa thing is recent, and that's more like me and the Unity Coalition. The concept of working together with anti-fascist organizations is not as widespread as BLM is. BLM's way more of a ubiquitous thing of like, we will work with these people, to where people like me are the ones that are at the forefront of kind of like trying to get people within our own movement to be like, hey, don't believe like what the media is telling you about all these people. I've met them. They're not what you're being told.
Yeah.
Which is like why I even got my friend Star, who's over in Portland, who's part of Portland AFA, to come with me on Alex Jones to like make like the Portland like leftist message to Alex Jones, to try to like demystify and break down this. So sorry to interrupt your original question if you want to get back to that, but just making it very clear, because a lot of people will go back like 3-4 months ago and be like, oh, here's all these Boog boys like talking about hating Antifa. And I'm like, yeah, because like back then we all felt that way until like a lot of us started having very important personal interactions with people that identify as leftists in that kind of way.
Yeah.
And that's when the opinion started changing.
Right. Okay, well, yeah, that kind of leads into the point I was sort of going to try and make about the fact that a lot of people want to indulge in that kind of violence. And it's interesting that you mentioned that your alliance with Antifa is relatively recent, because I want to ask you if your opinions on Carl Rittenhouse have changed in any way in the recent months, because I know from social media posts you put out that you were initially supportive of what
see, that's really surreal, because I know exactly what the post is going out, and it like deliberately ignores a lot of the conversation. And then even the tweet itself is very specific, to where I've said very clearly that I don't think he should have been there. I think the adult male militia members that brought him into that area and were responsible for him, that then left a 17-year-old alone in a riot with a rifle, should be talked about way more and held way more responsible for that action. And that I don't think his personality wise, I think the kid's a bit of a prick in terms of how he conducts himself, and especially with the images that have come out of him recently. But that I do believe in a universal belief of self-defense. And I think that in the first instance of what's his name, the bald guy, that he was in the right to defend himself. But that I feel the same exact way in almost very similar situations of the Ahmaud Arbery thing of, if Ahmaud Arbery would have shot and killed those two white dudes that were attacked him, I would have said, go Ahmaud Arbery. You're totally in your right to do that. And that pisses both like the right and left off a lot. And there's a lot of like, oh, they're not the same at all, and there's all these different circumstances. And that kind of goes to like the universal principle that's it doesn't matter what was going on around, if you are not attacking someone and you're trying to leave an area or disengage, you have the right to defend yourself if violence is enacted upon you. Is that universal principle?
Okay, but I think your equivocation of those two situations is incorrect or is misguided, I think. Ahmaud Arbery was literally not trying to be a threat to anybody. He was out jogging, I believe.
Yeah, and Kyle Rittenhouse was running away with his back turned to people that were chasing him.
Well, yes, but he had pointed a gun, notedly. He'd been open carrying, which for me, and I know I'm not American or whatever, but for me, if you open carry, you're already a threat to me. I'm going to see that instantly as a threat, because you are literally stating, I have the power to kill you. I can do that.
Yeah,
right
and that's the whole point, and that's why usually you don't try to attack people that have rifles. That's kind of
but the point is, he'd pointed the gun at people. He'd been verbally aggressive towards people.
Right, but if you're disengaging, you let the person run away. Like you're not a police officer. You don't shoot someone in the back. Like the moment someone's disengaging, and a lot of people forget in that instance that there was an individual behind Kyle that's in the video firing a handgun in the air and yelling, "Get him!" So like if I'm disengaging from a situation, there's someone behind me chasing after me saying like, "I'm gonna get you, motherfucker," and then I hear a gunshot behind me. Like the rules have changed. Like the whole situation has changed. To where like but to even take it further, when you get to the second shooting instances where you had a group of people that were unrelated to the first shooting that just heard, hey, there's a white kid on the loose and he's shooting people, and they see a white kid running by, I don't blame them for trying to stop him because they didn't know the context either. They were just trying to act in a moment of like after the shooting had already started and things had already like gone south. I think it was kind of dumb for them to try to do that, but I do view it as brave, if that makes sense.
Well, exactly, but this is my the point with it, right? He shouldn't have been there, and you admit that. That's fine. But that's the thing. He went there looking for shit, right? He went there specifically, I think, and this is a contention I would have with a lot of Boogaloo boys too. They often go to a place looking for trouble.
I disagree with that totally and utterly. If we wanted trouble, we could easily start trouble. We're the most heavily armed. We could do anything we wanted. There's nothing stopping us from doing it. We don't do it for that reason.
There are laws, and specifically, you want to be able to claim self-defense. You want to essentially to spark the civil war.
Absolutely no. I mean that's a very key misunderstanding about the Boogaloo movement is we don't give a fuck about the law like at all. Like the whole idea is that we're not a conservative militia where we want to be like, oh, we want to be like legally in the right and we respect the authority of the law. Like we're an anarchist libertarian movement. Like we do not care what is or is not legal.
No, that's fine, right? I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do. I'm saying you're aware of the fact, like you said with your friend who's in jail now. It's a disincentive, right? You don't want to go to jail, so you generally follow laws. That's the way it goes.
But if we didn't want to go to jail, then we wouldn't call ourselves Boogaloo Boys. We would just stay home. We wouldn't participate.
No, but this is I think you want a plausible cover. You want to be able to do, not you specifically. Again, I'm not making personal accusations.
We can like put it in our heads that every you will be like it's the royal you or whatever from this point forward. So you don't have to keep explaining that.
Okay, sorry. You don't want to. I think a lot of them want to spark a civil war. I think they're happy to go there and try and be. To sort of LARP as a revolutionary initially, and then if something kicks off, they can then do the Rittenhouse and claim self-defense. When essentially it's not fucking self-defense because you've gone there looking for trouble, you found trouble. That's not really self-defense.
That just seems like very psychic. Like you're trying to assume to know what someone's thinking and why they're going there. The best example of this was like in Detroit when I went there. We stood between bikers that wanted to beat the shit out of the protesters. And the protesters. And we stood between them with rifles. And when these guys walked up, they expected to see a bunch of, in their conservative mind, skinny, scrawny, blue-haired, anti-fascist kids that wouldn't even put up a fight. They had brass knuckles. They had, billy clubs. A lot of them had guns. And instead, what they walked up to was a bunch of dudes in Hawaiian shirts with rifles. And they got really uncomfortable with that fact. And then they left to where, us being there, our intent to be there, is exactly what happened. We prevented violence from occurring. We didn't seek to commit violence. We didn't want violence to happen, but we showed up with the probability of violence, and because of that, violence didn't occur. Yeah. And that made us feel really good about it. Like I feel super happy when I go to an event and nothing happens, and I get really sad when there's events that go on just a couple miles from me that I couldn't make it to, where I hear that friends got like the shit beat out of them by Proud Boys or the shit beat out of them by cops.
Yeah, that's fine. You individually may often act that way, but I'm talking more broadly about a movement that you. This is the crux of what I have is that I don't know why you would call yourself a Boogaloo Boy if you do believe the things you believe and you act in the way you act, because that's not representative, it seems to me, of the rest of the Boogaloo Boys.
That's the confusing thing. It's like the biggest Boogaloo Boy page on Facebook had 65,000 members. I've posted multiple like screenshots of this on Twitter, to where the admins had the most liked posts on those pages were 2 different reports from admins, which one was explicitly in support of BLM, and then another one was a giant diatribe about how if there's any homophobia in this group, we will kick you out. And this was the biggest Boogaloo Boy page on Facebook. Like I said, 65,000 people. And these were the most liked posts. So it's like, why are people in these groups if that's like their belief? And why is it the largest? And that's the thing, is I feel like a lot of like these are actually the majority is totally manufactured, to where like if you look, like there's so many instances on the ground of like Minneapolis. There's a video of us walking up and being like, hey, we're here to protect you people, and getting hugs from the protesters. There's videos in Dallas from a BLM organizer of us getting lit up with rubber bullets and not firing on the police. Totally would have been in the right to shoot a cop if they shot us with a rubber bullet. We didn't do it because we didn't want that. There's so many receipts. And hell, even like John, my friend John, he is in the Breonna Taylor documentary. He was down on the ground with UPG, which is a Boogaloo group movement. They identify as Boogaloo Boys. He was on the ground in Louisville at the Breonna Taylor events for 85 days straight. And there's videos of the protesters loving him and welcoming him. And even a reporter from Tallahassee came up to Louisville and talked about how the police were infinitely less willing to beat and arrest protesters because they were there and because they were armed. Yeah. So there's too many like video evidence of like not just me, but of hundreds of members all across the movements in every single state acting exactly in accordance of like what I believe and what I say we do. Right,
but you claim that you'd have to be psychic to know the things that that I'd said earlier, but I don't have to be psychic, because we've seen, like, the Facebook page you mentioned was, I believe, a public page, whereas we've seen the way in which a lot of Boogaloo Boys talk in private. We've seen the Discord leaks from like Patriot Wave and they call themselves the Mujahideen of Liberty, which is fucking cringe as shit.
Patriot Wave was never like part of the movement or anything, and all of us never really represented them. That was just kind of like a meme page, and no one ever from those events ever came out to groups. And
they claim to be a part of it, and that's the thing you have to put up with. If you want the loose association thing, that's what's going to happen. And those people were fucking crazy.
Yeah, they were the worst. And a lot of people bring up the Discord leaks from the Pacific Northwest, but that's also the reason why so many people will hit me up on Twitter and be like, hey, do you guys have anyone in the Pacific Northwest? And I go, nope, because those people are insane up in the Pacific Northwest. That whole Discord leak that was on Left Close Right Wing Watch, we found out about that before they did and made very public statements of like, fuck those guys. So, and that's all like documented on that Facebook of like every single gotcha moment where it's like, oh, this is how the Boogs really feel. You can go back like 2 weeks and there will be a comment or a post or a video from someone within the movement being like, hey, we found this group of scumbags. They don't represent us anymore. Goodbye. And I even made a YouTube channel of having somebody in this exact way that was in our movement that we caught doing shit like this. And we made a very public statement to be like, hey, fuck this guy, which I feel like that's something that's only really rested on us. I feel like every single group has small pockets of like idiots that believe really stupid, extreme things, but we're the only ones that are held to the same standard of like, if there is even small pockets within the movement, they're representative of all of us.
But for me, they're not small pockets of the movement. You mentioned homophobia, for instance. The use of the F slur is pretty common amongst Boogaloo Boys, it seems to me.
I would just need to see that because I've never personally seen that. And I've been involved in almost every single Signal, Discord, all sorts of stuff. Like I said, you can pull up people that would post Boogaloo memes or identify as the Boogaloo meme. But when you see people that are like meeting together and are part of the movement that are like, actually involved in what's going on, I never see that. And I have a very like broad view of all of this. And to where I feel like people get so tripped up to where it almost gets to like the whole Pepe fiasco, to where like people associate the meme with people using the meme, which is like not always what is happening. Like Pepe is still used as like the Twitch default emotes for the vast majority of people, but there's also still people that believe because Nazis used the Pepe meme or took the Pepe meme to mean Nazi things, that it's a Nazi meme. And I think that's just like a fundamental misunderstanding of how memes in general work.
Right. So, I mean, is it are you just going to know True Scotsman every example then? Because that's
No, I mean, no, I'm very open in admitting that there are dickheads in the movement, but like the best way to deal with that is to be like, hey, here's this dickhead, like show us them, like please, like give me screenshots, give me their username, their Twitter profile, whatever, and we will dogpile them and kick them out of the movement, and it will be very public and very visible to everybody, and we're not afraid of that. I'm very open with admitting that like there are scumbags in this movement. But there's scumbags in every movement, and I just happen to be one of the few people that are like, "Hey, here I am. I am the receptacle to this. If you find somebody running around in a Hawaiian shirt doing something that I wouldn't agree with, let me know, and then you will see the entire like national movement come out of the woodwork to say fuck that guy, and he'll be gone, and we can just start going through these assholes one at a time and just no longer have to deal with them."
Okay, I know that can definitely be provided, and I would be fine with people providing evidence to you and all the rest of it. But it's not really up to anyone else to like reform your movement for you, because it seems to me they're so poisoned that I don't know why anyone with your views would want to associate with that anymore.
I just don't view it as that poisoned, and I don't feel like anyone else is responsible. I just would welcome that, but it's also, you got to keep in mind that we've been banned off of everything. To where like there may be some obscure Discord somewhere with like 13 people in it that are doing horrible shit I have no idea about. I'm never going to interact with those people. I'm never going to find those people. They're probably never going to show up to an event, for one, because the people that actually show up on the ground are never those kind of people. So it's just like, yeah, but where is the expectation of how to find them and how to deal with them with the censorship? If we were all on Facebook still, it would be way easier. And there was plenty of I guess you would call them almost public tribunals or kangaroo courts, as we like meme called them, of people we would find in the movement and very like publicly on these pages be like, hey, dude, saw you post this. What's this about? And they'd be kicked out of the group. To where now, instead of a giant collective of like pages of tens of thousands of people where we can all interact, now it's like, well, maybe I'll find somebody occasionally on Twitter that hasn't been banned yet, or maybe I'll randomly by happenstance run into someone at an event that I hadn't talked to in months and months and then be invited to some obscure signal. But otherwise, like there's the means to do that has been removed from us, and like we don't have the same kind of tools that a lot of anti-fascist organizations have of being able to like find all of this shit. Like they're wizards at being able to like dig in and find all these Telegram chats and everything like that. We don't have that kind of structure or people in the movement that are good for that. And that was actually the foundation of me working with the local anti-fascist organization is our whole relationship started with like, hey, let's work together, and I'll let you know if there's a random kid that shows up in all black at a protest that you guys have never seen before and starts trying to start fights and shit. I'll let you know about that if you let me know if there's some dude that shows up with a Hawaiian shirt at an event and tries to start problems. And that was kind of the foundation of our whole relationship, was working with each other to identify and go after like scumbags that are running around with our name.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that these people don't come out to your events and stuff, and that may very well be true. I think a lot of them are slacktivists. But in the outcome of the civil war that you predict or whatever, who is it you think is going to come out on the side of Boogaloo? Because joining from
nobody.
Nobody. Well, from what I've seen, well, in that case, you're a useless organisation then, because you've got like a few hundred members across, or a few thousand maybe, which is nothing in a nation of 350 million or whatever it is. Yeah. So if no one joins with you, then there's sort of no point in your existence, and therefore the negatives that come along with it don't seem to have any positives to pay that back.
Well, that nobody's going to join anybody is my point, though. Is if it gets to that point where America goes under, like if on the 6th, like those Trump supporters actually like broke into the Capitol building and like beat to death all of Congress or some insane shit, like there wouldn't be no teams in the way that we would understand them. Like the country would go from zero to Mad Max like really quickly. So like the idea of like who would stand with you, like nobody's gonna if we allow it to get to that point. Like nobody's going to be standing with anybody. It's going to be extremely local tribalistic chaos. Every single group, every single actor, foreign actors, like anyone who has a stake in America, they're all going to be in their own little bubbles. Which is why, like, we in particular, like, we could have easily just stood home. We could have easily just stayed home and been doomsday preppers and trained and everything like that, which would go perfectly along with the ideology. But we know that if it gets to that, it's going to be fucking awful.
But this is sort of fantasy thinking. What civil war has ever gone the way you described? This is not the end of the world.
Syria.
No, Syria has factions.
Yeah, exactly. But I think at the height of the Syria
street
war,
by
it was
street or city by city. They
have
like specific
that's the thing,
factions
though, is
based
in
on
Syria,
like race and politics and stuff.
Exactly, which is awful. At the height of the Syria civil war, there was like 32 different factions, and factions would be on each other's side one day and then killing each other the other day, and then like the foreign governments started getting involved, and it just all went to hell. To where now, if you're not an expert on the situation, if you try to go down to Syria to figure out what the hell is going on, there will be groups of people that will call themselves one thing one day, and then like next week they're a totally different group fighting for a different side, and then the next day like it was just chaos and bloodshed.
But this is my point. That's nothing like the thing you described there, because
that's exactly like a New York Democrat is not going to fight alongside a Portland anti-fascist.
No, absolutely.
Like, Kentucky Republican isn't going to fight with like a Ohio millionaire conservative.
No, but the point is, it's not going to be just on a completely local level, because you're still going to have national institutions, you're still going to have outside actors. No, there's no way the international community would allow a nuclear-armed superpower to fall into an absolute faction like that. There may be civil strife and all the rest of it, but your idea of it being like the zombie apocalypse, where it's like street by street fighting between different families and stuff, like, it's just, that's nonsense. Civil wars don't go that way.
I mean, also, like, there's never been an instance where political division has been so local as it is. If you zoom in on any single state, almost every urban center, even if it's small,
Bleeding Kansas was.
Yeah, well, that was fucking awful.
Yeah.
And we saw what it was. It was very much just like communities fighting communities, and obviously that had like a racial element to it, because that was during obviously Jim Crow and just desegregation of that whole time period of just violence.
No, it was long before Jim Crow.
No, I'm just talking like the period of like pre-Civil War onwards to like desegregation. Okay. That whole period of just racial violence, essentially, the Klan and everything that went on with that was very much what it was like. It was very decentralized, very tribalistic, very primitive, which, you know, obviously like race is probably as primitive as a conflict reason as you can boil down to. So that would be awful. And that's how I view it is if you like every single city is blue, all the countryside is red. So there would be no dividing line between these factions. There would be no Mason-Dixon line cutting the country in half where the North is Republicans and the South is Democrats. It would be madness and chaos, really. And like you said, though, like also you're right, though, the foreign powers would not allow the United States to go that way. But also, like, not everyone is our friends. So you would have like groups like the UN and stuff like that. But you'd also have like Russia. You'd also have like China. You'd also have like even, you know, cartels in Mexico. Like all these foreign actors would also come to get involved in this, and that would make it even more of a clusterfuck.
Yeah. Also, on a wider point before we get into some of the more detailed stuff in a second. What is it that makes you think there's going to be a civil war, and do you think it's like literally imminent, or are we talking 50 years? Like what?
Well, I love talking about this with Brits, because I feel like we're already in our version of the Troubles. We already have like secular violence in the street. We already have political like interpopulation violence. We already have people shooting cops shooting people. We've had 2 car bombs. Like, it very much reeks of like the Troubles, to where the fact that the guy that blew up the car bomb in Nashville on Christmas Day had a YouTube video where he was playing like IRA propaganda. So that makes like the similarity even more, you know, aligned. Yeah. So I kind of feel like we're already in some, like, I don't know if you would consider the Troubles a civil war in that way, but we're already kind of in that. And definitely my experiences over the entire summer of like, I've seen hand-to-hand violence. I've seen violence with weapons like bats and stuff like that between Trump supporters and like counter protesters and stuff. And I've seen people pull guns on each other, and we've seen people shoot and kill each other over political differences. So I don't see that magically getting better. Like once you kind of pass that threshold, there has to be some kind of giant event to change things, whether that be something that a single giant event that's very unifying, or a single giant event that causes everything to blow apart.
I think there's a difference between, say, violence, which is the thing you're describing, and war. That's a
But that's
fundamentally
the thing
different
is, like, if you talk to a lot of Trump supporters, they view it as war. They view it as like, we're going to go out and we're going to mow down these commie scumbags, and then
yeah,
it's
they're crazy terrorist bastards. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, if you go, regardless of like what moral thing you put on it, at the same time, there was a BLM activist that was arrested by the FBI just yesterday because he was posting things on Facebook about like, oh, when they come, we're going to kill them all, and like if these conservatives keep pushing us, it's going to be a fight and stuff like that. And that's very like, that is not like, oh, I disagree with you politically. That's like, both of them view themselves as under attack, and both of them are willing to retaliate with violence. And it, like, you can pick whatever side you think is more rational or irrational. That's fine. There's arguments. I personally think that the Trump people take it way overboard more often than not, but it's warlike thinking. They have dehumanized the other side of the political spectrum, and they are okay to kill. Which that's not just violence. That's conflict. That's drawing lines, and I definitely see a lot of drawing lines in this country going on right now.
Well, I think you're so far from a civil war that it's sort of farcical in a way, but I mean that's possibly just a difference of opinion on semantics, maybe. But on a broader level, you claim you don't want a civil war, but you just anticipate a civil war. But it seems to me a lot of Boogaloo boys definitely do want a civil war. They seem to relish in the idea and thrive.
Yeah, it's very nihilistic kind of just feeling of like everything's so fucked, so like whatever. Like it definitely that kind of sentiment. I don't think, like, if you talk to a lot of people and actually get past the memes and on the real level, they're like, yeah, that would be awesome, and that would be awful, and things won't be great, and it'll suck, and it's not glorified or dramatic. But there's definitely, like, you got to consider a lot of people in the movement are people that have had horrific life experiences with the government. A lot of us are victims of police brutality. A lot of us are victims of like government issues. A lot of our membership is ex-military that spent like the better part of their childhood blowing up brown kids in the Middle East, and they couldn't tell you why, and they've never given a reason for it, and they feel awful about it. So like a lot of it is like this kind of like nihilistic laughing at death sort of belief of like this is coming, and this is inevitable, and this is awful. But like you can cry about it or you can laugh, sort of thing.
But you say nihilism. It's not laughing just at the death of yourself, which is one thing. These people seem to be laughing and relishing in the idea of killing other people.
Yeah, I would say definitely there's some of that, and definitely in terms of like the sort of a view of the federal government more than anything, because a lot of people like view it as like, oh, it's the super violence of it is directed towards the people, to where if you look at the memes, and almost every single meme regards the federal agencies, whether it be the FBI, the ATF, stuff like that. And that comes from a position of like, there is like this deep, like, fuck the police kind of ACAB belief behind that, of like, yeah, a lot of people in the movement would be perfectly happy if the FBI agent decided to kick their door in. That's definitely there. Like, I won't deny that.
Yeah, and that's sort of the point. I mean, I've seen tweets from yourself about gun legislation, and how you seem to be making sort of threats in a way about if people come to try and take your guns, that there's no need for them to knock.
It's
like that's
it's by the door for a reason.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's the kind of glorification of violence, and that would be one thing in of itself.
But yeah, I mean, like when you feel the same way of like, hey, like Kevin, the police have decided that your computer is illegal. They're coming into your house to take your computer, and they'll probably beat and kill you when they do it. Wouldn't there be a little bit of like, well, I'd like to see you try behind that?
No,
because that's kind of the whole mentality.
It's not the police making laws, is it?
Yeah, but that, I mean, are we about to have like a pro-police, anti-police argument where I'm on the weird side of? Like,
no. Trust me, everyone on this channel knows I'm firmly ACAB. But the point being is that in terms of the, like I say, glorifying of violence and the kind of almost thirst for violence in a lot of Boogaloo boys, when you ally that with the fact that there are a lot of terrorists that have come out of this movement too,
you got exactly two. So
I don't know that that's necessarily true.
You have Stephen Carrillo, which he was a Air Force Army dude who just flew, like literally flew off the fucking handle and then
And
ambushed two cops.
yeah,
And then you have what's his name, that shot at a burning police station that had already been lit on fire and burning, which is like a weird, like, oh God, clutch my pearls. He fired a gun into a police department that had already been like raided, looted, and lit on fire by rioters. Which is like, I think the priority's a little weird on that one.
Okay.
And then I guess the only other people that have been arrested were the two guys in Milwaukee that apparently, according to the FBI, which, you know, they're the most trustworthy sources in the world, were trying to sell illegal suppressors to Hamas, which...
Well, we don't even need to go there, because, I mean, the two examples I was going to bring up was the one you mentioned there of Carrillo in California, who shot two and killed one of them. And then, but then did the weird thing of writing in blood on the hood of the car.
Which is super weird. And
Yeah.
like if that was just a random guy that did that, I would be like, wow, he's crazy. But the fact that he was like in the military, like, you know, reasonably decent ranked in the military, and he went out of the way to write Boog in blood on his, it just brings like a lot of like weird questions of who exactly that guy was and what the hell was going on with him, and like why would like an active duty like military member do that. So that was like, I don't know. There's a lot of like weird questions we have around that guy, because none of us were really super familiar with him. He kind of like came out of nowhere. He was in group chats for like a week or so, didn't talk much, and then flew off the handle and shot a bunch of people. So it was like,
okay. I mean, I'll let that kind of conspiracy theorism stand, because I mean,
it's not even conspiracy. Like, we just don't have the answers. Like, I couldn't tell you, you know, like there is a lot of questions, but nobody really seemed to like have the answers for him.
Yeah, and then I do have to bring up this example, because I think it's very pertinent, given it happened in your state.
Oh yeah, so the Whitmer thing. This is the easiest one to talk about. So yeah, the Wolverine Watchmen are a conservative militia, and we have been around them. We were at lockdown events together and stuff like that. We even went as far as, because the whole way the militia community works is like we all know each other. We all go to the same gun stores. Like it's the same. It's just the same as like the Magic the Gathering community or your pick community. Like anything that involves showing up to locations, like everyone runs in similar circles. To where the most famously cited like image of them was my friend Tim Teagan and them two of the Wolverine Watchmen that were at the Lansing State Capitol, and they were wearing Hawaiian shirts. That was the only time they ever wore Hawaiian shirts, and the only reason they did it is because Tim like egged them on to do it because he thought it would be funny. But they always identified themselves as like a conservative militia. The guy who led it was I think he was Catholic, maybe preacher. Either way, he ran his own congregation. There were super big Trump people, and we would always get into arguments with them over like Donald Trump in the Second Amendment and everything. So yeah, that whole thing happened, and the four people in particular that have been charged are all the people that are explicit like Watchmen people. To where the two Boogaloo boys that got picked up haven't been charged with anything because they were just affiliated kind of loosely with that. And a lot of us in the movement actually got raided the same time they did, got detained for it, and then through like further investigation were released because we were determined to not have anything to do with that. But like if they were explicit Boogaloo boys, then I would be in jail right now. My friend Tim Teagan would be in jail right now for being like a part of what happened. But we weren't, because they were their own thing.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, for a start, the leader of that group was known as Boogaloo Bunyan, which, I mean, doesn't necessarily, but considering there's no official membership, that seems pretty obvious that he had some allegiances with you all, and that that you were hanging out together all the time, and like there's these pictures. There's the three of them. Was it Daniel Harris, Caleb Franks, and Pete Masico, who are now facing a criminal conspiracy to kidnap Governor Whitmer, sorry. All have significant ties to local Boogaloo movements and have been seen at various things together.
They have lots of ties with us, but they were never part of our group. But that's not like a no true Scotsman thing. It's just like that's
precisely a no true Scotsman thing.
No, I'm saying that's how the pockets work. Like I cannot speak for what went on with them, but they were not us, as in like me and my guys that showed up together and went to places. They identified as their own thing.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But when you keep showing up at the same events with people who end up doing terrorist conspiracy theories, and you're part of a larger group who do violent rhetoric and have been engaged in other acts of terrorism, I think it's a pretty clear pattern of behaviour that this is a.
But I
at
mean,
the very
let's
least,
apply that. Let's apply
breeding
that
ground
to
for
like
terrorism.
let's apply that to like the exact different movement. Let's go with BLM. Would we consider BLM a terrorist movement? Well, actually, we'll make it easier. Would we consider Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders fans a terrorist movement because one of their supporters showed up to the Republican baseball game and shot a bunch of people?
No.
Would we consider BLM a terrorist organization because that one dude flew off the handle in Dallas and killed 5 cops?
No.
No. And that in the same way of like you have the Boogaloo movement where you have exactly, even if you want to count those, you have 5 members of an entire national movement who have committed acts of violence, to where if you blow that up to anything, like it feels like the conservative argument of like, oh, all anti-fascists are bad because here's these 6 images of nondescript people in all black beating up like an old man or something. Or BLM is bad because here's this one lone individual that went and killed a bunch of cops. So that represents the entire national movement. To where like that's kind of what I get to of like and even if you want to go into like rhetoric, like you could say like I can go on to any like ACAB Twitter account and see pictures of burning cop cars or the picture of Minneapolis police station burning, and it would be like that's violent terroristic rhetoric, and it's like no, like that's just part of what it is, like the whole ideology behind it. Just because there are BLM protesters wearing shirts of cops getting shot does not mean they intend to go out and shoot a bunch of cops.
No, but the violent rhetoric used by Boogaloo people isn't just generic violent stuff. It's specific targeted planning for violence in the future, which I can understand why that would lead to people who have more terrorist-minded conspiratorial thinking and all the rest of it going towards it. And I think that's really fucking dangerous. I think the Boogaloo movement, and again, I'm not saying you or your specific people.
No, I agree.
The wider Boogaloo movement,
I view the government in general as more dangerous.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, okay, yeah, in the US government, I'm sure it absolutely is. But the point being is that you've aligned yourself with the Boogaloo movement, which seems to me a breeding ground for domestic terrorism.
Yeah, and like honestly, like you can just go into of like why do people feel that way? Like why was there riots all across the country all year? Why did all those Trump supporters storm the Capitol building? Why is like there's so many people from across the political spectrum that are like hitting that point of like, okay, let's go. Like fuck the laws, like fuck private property, fuck the Capitol building, like whatever the instance was, like I'm over it, I'm ready to go. It's like not just exclusive to our movement.
Well, no,
like
again,
we're very much a symptom of it. And you could say like we're more specific and more condensed and more focused and more aggressive version of that, and I'd be like, that's fine, but you should be asking more questions of like, okay, so why do we exist? You know,
but there's a lot of false equivalences again here. It seems to me that you mentioned, like say the BLM protests and riots and stuff. That seems to me like there's something to it. There's a justified reason for it. Whereas what happened at the Capitol, there's no reason for.
I agree with the Capitol, but like they don't believe that. So why do they feel that way? Like you can say it's a false equivalency in your mind.
They're delusional, borderline fascist garbage is the reason.
Okay, but that's my point though. Is like you say like how could you not believe there's a civil war when you can say that like 40% of my country are delusional and fascistic, and I'm not even saying you're wrong. But I'm saying like,
no,
okay,
no.
There's
a difference between Trump voters, most of whom would put an X next to the R candidate if it was a fucking house brick or a cheese sandwich. They don't give a fuck, right?
Fair.
But
very fair.
The MAGA.
That's how elections in America work. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, that's first past the post. That's how it works that way here. The government currently got 25% of the electoral possible vote, and have a fucking massive majority. Anyway. The point is, the MAGA delusional crazy fucks don't represent 40% of the public. And look, what the best that they could do was go into the Capitol, and it was one of the most ham-fisted shithouse attempts at a revolution I've ever seen.
I call it a clown fiesta. Like I hate when they call it like an insurrection or a storm or whatever. It was fucking embarrassing.
Well, it was an attempted insurrection. I'd no doubt. They went there with zip ties to arrest people.
No, as I said, that's fine. But that like obviously like I'll be very specific and clear that I'm not saying the intent. I'm saying the result. Like the result was it was like an embarrassing clown fiesta fucking shit show. They're prank calling off of phones, and I always bring up like the very specific thing to where like if you were an individual that actually wanted to damage the government, like which they did, but not like if you wanted to competently do it, they had all the hard drives of like all of Congress and all of these computers and all of these emails, and nobody touched any of it because they're stupid. So like even like they're the most failure, like insurrectionists of almost like like human history. I would almost say. Like,
are you suggesting they should have been more criminal?
No, I'm just saying like that proves of like how dumb these people are, because they had the opportunity to do so much that they would want to accomplish, but their like simple brains did not even comprehend the possibility of going after that or doing that. Instead, they smoked weed and prank called people off of phones. So it just goes to like the type of intellect of the people that were going in there. These weren't really smart, calculated, like with a deep plan that was going to be very successful and well thought out. No, like these were just like somebody had opened the cage to the zoo and they just chaos and idiocy, essentially, is what I'm getting at.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, I think you've somewhat attempted to squirm out of the connection to terrorism to a degree here.
Well, I mean, it's a revolutionary movement. We expect things to go awful. We don't obviously, when I say that I don't want a civil war, that does not mean I don't want a revolution. Like, we explicitly want the government to go, and we are going to continue to take actions to make sure the government goes. We would just prefer if it was all of America realizing they live under this weird, like, neoliberal, neocon, not even semi-fascists at this point. We can just be very explicit and say fascist government, and that we need to like correct that rapidly. We would prefer that's kind of what happened, but we also understand that like there's a chance that's not how it's going to go, and we're not either afraid or like trying to obfuscate the reality of that. Like that is part of like the meme of it. Like
people in the chat point out they did actually steal a laptop from the Capitol as well. Just to
did anything?
Record, but yeah.
Did anything come out of that?
I'm not sure.
That's the first I've heard of that. Okay, no. Interesting.
But, yeah, but anyway, we'll do. Yeah, but as the point,
I bet that guy didn't make it very far.
Probably. Well, I don't know, but we'll wait and see, I suppose. But in terms of the point you were making about it being revolutionary. So this is another contention I would have with your unity coalition type thing that you want to do with people on the left, is that it seems to me fundamentally wrong or fundamentally not helpful in the long term for the left to unite with people like yourself, because the society you envisage post-revolution seems to me not only not desirable but pretty disgusting in some senses.
I mean, how would you view my post-society?
Well, I know for instance, you're against like universal healthcare, it seems.
Yeah, I'm an anarchist. I want a total dissolution of everything to extremely local level.
Right, but that's not really going to help in terms of like, say.
I mean, if you're willing to get into it with left wing anarchists about that, you can water.
No, well, I'm not. I've said before, like I've a lot of sympathy with anarchism as a theory, but I don't think it's really practical. Because, for instance, say let's transfer the current day situation. You get into a worldwide pandemic. How do you solve that with a local level? Does every single commune have to put together its own vaccine plan? That doesn't seem plausible.
I see no reason why people wouldn't voluntarily work together across that globally. I don't see any. I don't view it as isolationist. I just view it as self-autonomous, and I don't see why there'd actually be more instances of like local communities coming together to form a vaccine than now, to where it has to go through governments that are going through these mega pharmaceutical corporations that are only interested in the most maximizing profits, and then all the weird like incestuous regulation that always happens to benefit these mega corporations, to where like that response has been fucking god awful.
Yeah, but surely once you start coordinating, as you put it, between these different groups and all the rest of it, doesn't that then become its own sort of government?
I mean, if there's not a hierarchy, there's not a government. Well, sorry, not if there's not a, because that's the one thing is even under an anarchist system, like the idea that people would refer to as government as like a hierarchy of and stuff like that, that's not off the table. The whole point is that it is a voluntary association, that you can participate or opt out, and it has no threat of force over you, if that makes sense.
Okay, so in that sense then, how does one keep order in any sense? Because if you've got a gun, but that's the thing is I believe everyone should have one, and very rapidly that's becoming the case in my country, to where everyone has a firearm. So well, not everyone does have a firearm, and not just that, but some people will use it in different ways. Let's assume that you're a positive gun owner who would only use it for entirely justified reasons. There are people who wouldn't do that. There are people who, like the people at the Capitol, for instance, who would happily fuck you and everyone else over for their own benefit.
Yep.
How do you stop that? Because without
With
getting into gun...
with,
So you just get into
well, that's what
gunfights
the,
in the
that's what
streets. This is like the
that's what the
Wild
police
West.
do,
This is a
though.
fucking
That's what the-
nightmare.
That's what the police do now. There's gunfights. Like literally, I live near Detroit. There's gunfights between the police and criminals that are using illegal firearms every night. So like, what's the difference? You know, except the only difference is that I wouldn't be shooting a black dude in the back for running away because he has a plant in his pocket.
Well, yeah, you might not be. You might not be, but I think a lot of people would. There's a lot of
right, but those people are doing that now. That's like,
no, absolutely.
That's the most ironic thing about it is like
Yeah.
90% of criticisms of 90% of criticisms of anarchism are just descriptions of the current system we live under now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you'll get no defence of the police from me. I don't like them at all. But the point is, I think there does have to be some sort of system that we can all agree on that is able to keep some kind of order. I don't know whether that's
a fine disagreement. I mean, we have it in our own movement all the time. Like what if Liberty Bandit? He's on Twitter. He's an African pan-separatist black guy that wants to like create like an autonomous black nation in the South.
Yeah.
There's like then you have like traditional like libertarian party people, and then you have like anarcho-socialists and like everything in between in the movement. So like we all, like I said, I can only speak for myself from the anarchist view. But when that's kind of what I got out of like there's only things I can speak for myself, not for the movement. The movement doesn't have like a uniform like economic theory, a uniform like stance on a lot of issues. The movement itself already is a unity coalition of various forms of anarchists and libertarians working together despite their disagreements.
Yeah.
To where so like that's what I say like oh they wouldn't want to work with somebody like me, but then I'm like well I know for a fact there's tons of people in BLM that would love Bandit's view of the world of creating an autonomous black state. So it's like, you know.
Well, I mean, whilst I don't necessarily support black nationalism because ethnic nationalism I think is wrong in general, I understand why black people in America would feel that way. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and there's definitely like groups like that in here that have probably like that because obviously I'm certain there's white nationalists in the UK, but like. I might be wrong on this because I'm not super versed, but definitely like the NFAC Black Panther kind of black nationalist thing is way more of a thing over here than a lot of places in Europe.
Well, for a start, if you've got more black people, so that would make more sense. There's a different racial history and all the rest of it. Anyway, that's a different time. That's two white dudes talking about it. It's probably not very interesting. But
let me grab another thing of water really quick.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Yes, hello everyone. How are we all? Hopefully this is of some vague interest to everybody. Oh wow, that was super quick. Okay.
Behind those flags is my bed. This is my entire apartment.
Oh wow, fuck.
Like literally like that is the kitchen and that is my bed and then that is the door to my bathroom. So yeah, I'm not exactly a wealthy individual. I'm also currently unemployed because of COVID, so that's awesome.
Okay. So,
and I'm not receiving unemployment benefits, and I haven't received either of my stimulus checks because America.
Yeah,
so.
Indeed. But on that point, I was going to ask you. You, I believe, as a right anarchist, you're still a supporter of capitalism, though.
Me, I'm more of a mixed person as like my preferred method. I've taken a lot of tests, and I've always landed somewhere between a mutualist and an agorist. So, definitely not like staunchly capitalist, but I view both anarcho-communism and like more of a like market economy as perfectly valid. To where like obviously like when you get into capitalism, there's so many weird definitions of that word. To where like state enforcement of private property, no, I do not believe in that version of capitalism. But if you view like free enterprise and markets, which is like what mutualists will talk about, you know, orange and black flag, then yes. So it's a little complicated answer, I guess. Okay. I don't view them as mutually exclusive in my system, essentially.
Okay, well that's interesting because it's almost. I mean, again, I suppose right libertarian in its way that you describe capitalism or what you see as capitalism as a thing that's never really existed because there's always been some state role in any capitalist society.
Right. Yeah. It depends on like what. That's why I explicitly use the word market because like capitalism does exist because capitalism as that definition is state like ensuring the rights of private property and markets, which that exists everywhere, you know. But then obviously if like defining your terms is so important because everyone has a different meaning for everything. Like obviously if you go talk to 200 Marxists, they will all tell you different versions of Marxism, you know, to where the same thing kind of exists on the other side of the aisle, to where like I view more of the market version of it, which would technically still be right wing in a way, but it's not that kind of capitalism, if it makes sense. It's a really
like
tricky subject, obviously, economics and the whole clusterfuck around that.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I was just going to ask if you were vaguely pro capitalist, how that would. It seems to me that you can't be a libertarian and a capitalist because there's systems of coercion.
Right. You have in that sense, yes, to where I do believe like pure people that call, like there are people that call themselves anarcho-capitalists and they get it and they still use that term, but it is kind of a bit of an oxymoron when you think about it, you know. So I do agree with that. Of you cannot have a state capitalist system and an anarchist system because that's mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Okay, well, we've been going about an hour. Is there any?
Shit, that flew.
Yeah. Did
very, very great questions, by the way. I appreciate it. If you feel like I didn't address anything too properly, my apologies.
That's cool, man. Any final thoughts? Anything you wanted to get out there? Any last...
A lot of people, I guess, like the occurring meme between this is a lot of people are like, you expect us to trust you? Like, no. Like, if me just saying fancy words to you made you trust me, we have bigger problems, you know? I'm seeking to earn this trust, and I'm seeking to, like, what I'm trying to accomplish, I don't want it to be given to me. Like, we're working really hard to pull it off, but if anyone just blindly took me at my word for everything I said, then why? You know, that's like that. You're probably a person who votes for really stupid, shitty politicians. So have fun with that. And my main thing I'm trying to solve is the dehumanization of people in between each other. I feel like, particularly in America, we've gotten to the point where we've dehumanized each other so much that bad things are going to continue to come out of it unless we kind of pull this together and be more. Because I think to a lot of people overseas, they don't understand how like kitchen table conversations can almost get to the point of like, well, the whole world would be better if the other political party just didn't exist and all those people went away. And that's very like horrifying way to view the world. So, and that's very common around here to where even like you got like normie people kind of pushing that edge of almost like secular violence against each other over political ideologies. And that more than anything, like if nothing ever happens and there is no boogaloo, there's no chaos, the government never comes and takes my guns, everything is cool. If I could just accomplish like making people neighbors again and making people not fucking hate and want to kill each other, like great. Cool. Pretty much like that's what I want to try to like accomplish.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, and maybe we'll talk another time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always around. I'm always fun to talk. This was a really good chat. I've actually have to use my brain for once because, like you said, there was a lot of very softball interviews. So yeah. I really appreciate this.
Oh, cool, man. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there we go, everybody. That was interesting. Hopefully for everybody. How did you think that went? I'm going to stick around and chat for a little bit, everybody, just to kind of decompress from the thing because that was tricky at times. I felt there was a lot of obfuscation, a lot of nonsense. Kev, he sucked. I think I've made my views clear on the Boogaloo Boys. Really, yeah, they're pretty shit, it seems to me. Now, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of this dude in particular. Because it seems to me like either he's telling the truth and he does believe those things, then why would he associate with them? And I did ask that and all the rest of it. And he's sort of no true Scotsman, which is really annoying. So that's really not. Or he's like a stalking horse, Trojan horse type person who wants to sneak right-wing shittery into left-wing spaces. It's one of the two. It has to be one of the two, it seems to me, right? Yeah. So, oh yeah, Milo got banned from Parler, which is funny, because apparently they were so pro-free speech. That was a thing that happened as well. I'll probably be talking about that with Christy tomorrow, I'd imagine. I suppose I should do some shilling, and then we can get to talking about some stuff and all the rest of it. Yes. Any? Oh, hang on. I did have some noises went off during the thing. So where are we? Yeah. So if you want to get super chats in, streamlabs.com/KFLogan1875. It's linked below. And I will read out whatever you have to say. Unless you're like a Boogaloo fan who wants to tweet some fascist shit at me, in which case I won't read that, but I will still take your money, because fuck you. So in terms of the people who followed, thank you to RV78, Zeke High, Zeke Heil, oh fuck, so that's a troll, I'll get rid of them, and the Couch Tripper, all for following on Twitch. Go and follow me on Twitch. All of you, now, I'm not asking you nicely, I'm demanding it. Go to twitch.com/KFLogan1875. It's linked below on the YouTubes. Go and follow me there. It's free. It costs you nothing. So I expect all 7.4 billion, I assume the entire planet's watching this, 7.4 billion people to go and subscribe to me immediately. Yeah, I got the Zig Heil joke in the end, yeah. They're funny folks, aren't they? I want Vosh to debate him. Oh, to Magnus. Oh, yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Yes. So go and follow me on the Twitches. You can also subscribe to me on the Twitches. It will cost you money to do that, unless you already have Amazon Prime, in which case you get one free subscription to a Twitch channel per month, and you can use that to give me Jeff Bezos his money, and together. This is the real left unity, everyone. You subscribing via Amazon Prime will bring down Jeff Bezos in about 600 billion years, or whatever. So yeah, you can do that if you so wish. Also, subscribe to me here on the YouTubes, because I never really gave too much of a fuck about like the analytics, but I decided to have a little look at the analytics a couple of weeks ago, and there are lots of people who watch who don't subscribe, but they keep regularly watching. It's very peculiar. So why not just subscribe to the YouTube channel? It's a little red button. It costs you fuck all. Why not hit the little dingly-dangly bell? It'll give you a fucking notification when I go live, which is like most days of the week, because I even started doing weekend stuff now, because I get bored. Lockdown is very, very boring. Yeah. Also, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to leave a comment. In fact, if you've watched this far, leave the phrase. What phrase shall I use? Kevin Logan is an astronaut. Leave that comment underneath this video if you've made it this far. Kevin Logan is an astronaut. Doesn't mean anything, but I want those comments underneath the video, please. It all helps the algorithm. So even if you can't support me financially, which is absolutely fine, I understand it's a very fucky time right now, people. You can leave a comment under the video. Again, cost you fuck all. Cost you nothing. I'm not clean shaven. How dare you? I've got a big old tufty beard going on there. Do we have a Rory Katz around? No, he's out. He's out and about. No, well, thank you for writing that in the chat, but I meant underneath the video when it's done. But again, thank you, bless you all. I love you dearly. But I meant like under the video when it's done, not in the live chat now. But thank you for writing it anyway. It's nice. Yeah. Hello everyone in the Twitch chat, by the way. It's good. We're starting to see some growth on Twitch. We're nearly at 500 followers. Again, go and follow me on Twitch. Go and follow me on Twitch right now. How dare you? How dare you not do so? It's outrageous. Anyway, yeah. Hopefully this one was okay. Hopefully the people Kevin was on the movie set with Stanley Kubrick pretending to be an astronaut. True. And I am an astronaut. Abso-fucking-lutely I am. Thank you to CDN Key for following me on the Twitch. It's very, very appreciated. That's what? I dropped the soul patch. It's not a soul patch. Oh my god, you people. The cutting comments. That's not a soul patch. That's like a... I call this look... well, if I shaved, so like that, right? I call this look the 1990s bassist from a mid-level nu metal band. That's what I've gone for there. It's a chin muffin. Well, we'll go with that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos got banned from Parler. That was funny. Cause fuck him. Yeah. He the free speech platform Parler is back. Oh, actually, I should check, shouldn't I? Is Ghost of Chavez still there? Have they got rid of any nonsense? I don't know. Oh, it's got a new symbol. Ooh, fancy. Are we there? Where are we? I don't know what company they used to get it back, but Parler's back up, by the way. So that's shitty. But why is it still going round? What? No, log in. Oh shit! What was my login stuff? Hopefully that works. I don't know. VXKV. See, this is. I'm not just proving this to them. I'm proving it to you, dear viewer, that I'm not a robot. I'm not a robot. Okay. No matter how many times people tell you I am, beep boop beep. I'm not a robot. What's it doing? Oh, it's so... Parler's so shit. Oh my god. It's just going round and round. Beep boop. Beep boop beep boop. Boop. What's it doing? Oh no. My internet connection's fine. My kilobits per second rate is absolutely off the fucking handle right now. I needed a capital B. Oh, is it doing that? Is it? Okay. Fuck off. Right. Log in. Next. Hello. Oh, there we go. Right. Oh, these are... Hang on. So that's capital U, lowercase f, capital SEEASJ. And it's doing the same thing. It's checking if you're European. Well, after Brexit, am I allowed to be European anymore? I don't know. Oh, I missed it. How did Kev do? Well, I think he went okay. I think I pressed him on a number of points and generally gave what I thought was a decent enough display. That's to everyone in the chat. How do you think I did? You can answer that both for Joe Arnold, who asked, and me, who wants to say. I want to see what you've got to say on the matter. Yes. Oh. The internet comment etiquette episode about Parler was pretty good. I haven't seen that, actually. I suppose we could watch it live on stream or something. No, Parler's just being shit. I don't understand what it's doing. I could have gone way harder. I could have done, but I don't want to be doing like internet blood sports type thing. I think it was pretty much a waste of time. Okay, yeah, I can understand some people thinking it's thinking it was a waste of time or whatever. But I wanted to just put it out there because I think a lot of people on the left who've interviewed this dude, like Jimmy Dore, who at least in theory is on the left, and various other of these people who are like kind of Dorite leftists, have had that guy on and essentially sucked his dick. Like, it's embarrassing. So I wanted to push back on some stuff, but I didn't want to just come on here and scream at the dude. Like, that doesn't seem like a productive thing. Look, it's more entertaining. You can get a lot more growth from your channel if you go out and just be like, fuck you, you piece of shit. I think you're a fucking worst person that's ever existed. Fuck you. But that's ultimately not very worthwhile, it seems to me. And I'm not, like, as anyone can tell, I'm not here to just, like, grow my channel. That's not how I operate here. I've got a certain ethical standard. Yeah, Parler's fucked, by the way, so I don't know what's happening there. Maybe I'll do something off here and check. If they've gotten rid of the ghost of Chavez, I will be deeply offended. You weren't as bad as Dore, though. Well, thank you. That's good. You let him jabber a bit much, and the discussion lost focus. Well, that's true. I mean, I did let him go a little bit, but I kind of wanted to hear what he had to say in some respects. Like, I brought him on as a guest, so I think it's rude to kind of speak over them, especially because the things he was saying, I think, were to some extent a little bit dishonest. But I don't think he wasn't like using the N-word or something. Like, it's not something I felt I needed to like shout him down on, if that makes sense. Kevin couldn't prove he was a robot. Exactly, yeah. Beep boop beep. I am a robot. Clearly, I am a robot then, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so Milo got banned from Parler is the main point I was going to make there. That's what that was about. Anyway. Yeah, and he got banned, it would appear, because he put out this shit. He said, tomorrow I will post Shapiro's cell number, that's Ben Shapiro, here. And every day after that I'll post another traitor's mobile phone number. Long live free speech. Anyway. Oh, Jesus. Right, so apparently Dave might have had something to do with that. But update, we're getting now. Per Liquid Rouge, who is this person, this is the post that got Milo Yiannopoulos kicked off Parler. Okay, well, this one goes into the bookmarks then. Parler can only be saved if we make it into Telegram. So that's like the fash, where the fash went when Parler was down. Who's with me? P.S. Death penalty for illegal immigrants when? Oh my God, what a fucking scumbag. Anyone who... Do you remember the Preble saying he's not a Nazi? You can't say he's a Nazi. Fuck off. I don't get why we don't shoot on sight. I'd give citizens $500 per illegal crossing stopped with an AK-47. What a fucking disgusting piece of shit. I mean, really. Fucking hell. And there have been people trying to, like, rehabilitate this piece of shit. What a piece of garbage. Well, how is he not... Why have America allowed garbage like that into the country? Fuck, man. You've got enough right-wing scum in your country without, like, importing it? Fucking Christ. That is unbelievably grim. Fucking... He really is fucking trash, isn't he? I don't know what they're doing in Twitch chat, but someone says, I think dogs should vote. To be honest, I trust the political voting and decision making from dogs more than I do from people. Like, dogs are good. People, not so much. Oh God, why is the Human Rights Act trending? The Tories want to get rid of it, I would imagine. I know Farage is saying a thing. Okay. Oh God. Should we watch Nigel Farage talk about the European Union Human Rights Act? Is that something people would be interested in watching? It's something I'm interested in covering at 2:30 in the morning. That's a meme from MBM Mam. Bam, just for the record. I don't know what the fuck that is. Okay, we're going to take a look. Fuck it. I'm just going to preface this by saying Nigel Farage is human garbage. It's like... Nigel Farage is like if you took a chunk of gammon and animated it with hatred from an evil witch. Or like a Morlock. Morlock? No, that's the fucking dystopian novel, isn't it? Anyway, But yeah, he's trash. Yeah, and he does look like he's from a fucking East Berlin flat in the 60s, apart from maybe the flat screen TV. But other than that, look at it. Look how austere this is. Is that a hotel room? That can't be his house, surely. Who would decorate it like that? Fuck me.
So yesterday was the first day of us getting tough at the borders at Heathrow. People coming in.
Jesus Christ. I'll turn him down. Anyway, so we're getting tough at the borders at Heathrow. Heathrow's an airport, for those who don't know.
In from 33 countries on the red list were taken off to hotels, and they've got to stay there for 11 nights. Now, some of this...
So he says tough at the borders. He's making it sound... Sorry about the ears. I didn't realise it was going to be so loud. Twitter videos, as anyone who's watched the Happy Hour show regularly will tell you, the Twitter video volume is very, very hit and miss. Sometimes it's so quiet you can't hear it. Sometimes it's like that where it'll blast your fucking face off. Like Nicolas Cage. Anyway, yeah, so he says getting tough at the borders. He means, for once, right? The fucking COVID shit's been going on nearly a year here now, right? It was like March when we went into the first lockdown. So we're nearly at the 12-month mark. We're probably at the 12-month mark in terms of people having it, but we didn't really know about it in February last year so much here. Although, of course, it started in 2019 in China, hence COVID-19. Yeah, so he says here we're getting tight at the borders, but he doesn't mean when he says getting tough at the borders, he means stopping immigrants. This is people who have come from COVID hotspot regions. Like he says, 32 countries. They were in the red zone, which, by the way, for everyone else in the world, Britain is one of those countries because we've got like 120,000+ deaths now, which is amazingly terrible. Like arguably the worst ratio of like people dead to population size of any country in the fucking world. It's embarrassing. So he's not. It's a very different thing. They're asking them to quarantine for 11 days or 14 days or whatever. He's fundamentally, dishonestly misunderstanding what's happening there. It's not an immigration thing. It's COVID, COVID stuff. Like we should have been doing this many months ago. We've just been allowing people who may have the disease to just wander in. Like we haven't been checking them when they get here. No wonder it's rampant, for fuck's sake.
This was a bit of a farce because, of course, the passengers from all different flights were mixing, queuing up for passport and in the airport terminal. But you could say we're getting tough on our borders, and perhaps we should have done it a year ago.
Yeah, but again, when you say tough at the borders, you mean stopping brown people coming in. Kev, what are the chances of Wales leaving the UK post-Brexit asking for a friend? Are you actually asking for a friend, or are you Welsh? Because if you were Welsh, surely you'd know. Basically, the chances are pretty slim to virtually none. Now, that's not because the people of Wales are necessarily massively pro-union, or though there's certainly a lot of those people too. The Welsh independence support has rocketed post-Brexit and post-Brexit election and all the rest of it. Scotland will definitely go first. I think there's no doubt within the next 10 years, Scotland will have another referendum and will vote to leave. Unless something vastly changes. Unless the British government actually start giving a fuck about what's going on in Scotland and like doing doing things that benefit the people of Scotland rather than just the people of England. It's there's no real way that Scotland doesn't leave, it seems to me. Anyway, so but in terms of Wales, like I say, support for Welsh independence has significantly grown, but it's not at a point where it's a realistic shot just now. Like I remember the 2017 election. This is one of my favourite stats. The main Welsh independence political party is called Plaid Cymru, and they're not a particularly massive party. Like I think they've got like 2 members of parliament. at a national level, and they're a reasonable force in Welsh politics, but they're not like massive. But the majority of the people who voted for them, I think it was the 2017 general election, the majority of people who voted for Plaid Cymru didn't actually support Welsh independence. They just wanted to vote for a party to the left of the Labour Party. So they didn't even the majority of their own voters in that election didn't actually support Welsh independence, even though they are the Welsh Independence Party. So, independence support. Can't spell. Welsh independence support. Rising Welsh independence. This is from 8 hours ago. Okay. Scotland and Northern Ireland. Where are we? Give me numbers. There are no numbers there, dickhead. Latest YouGov, 33% of Welsh people would view... Hang on, where are I? Total 33% of those opinions say they'd vote for independence. So a third of Welsh people think independence would be a good idea, which means 2/3 don't. Now, you might think a third doesn't sound like a lot, but it used to be like 10% or something. Like it used to be a really quite a fringe, out there political opinion, whereas now 1 in 3 Welsh people support it. So, you think Ireland will leave as well? I fucking hope so. The people of Ireland deserve one united nation. That's the way it should always be. Yeah, basically Welsh independence. Not just because of Brexit, because it's never as simple as just it being about Brexit or about any large-scale political change like that. Is never about one particular political issue, right? It's often like a myriad of different things. Wales has undergone the same deindustrialisation and attendant economic deprivation that parts of Scotland have. Parts of Scotland used to have like ship making docks and stuff that don't make ships anymore, and so those jobs aren't there anymore. Wales was known mainly for like mining, coal mining and slate mining and stuff like that. And there's still an element of that goes on, but really it's a vanishingly small number of people actually employed in those industries now, and they haven't been replaced with anything. So there's a huge amount of economic deprivation, and then you add Brexit into it, and not just Brexit itself, because it's a multifaceted, multi-layered thing. It's the way in which those regions of the country have not been taken into account. Like Scotland voted overwhelmingly not to Brexit. Now that doesn't mean that because it was a nationwide thing, so that doesn't mean we shouldn't have necessarily done Brexit, but we should have taken the opinions of the people of Scotland into account. Wales voted narrowly for Brexit, actually, which is a bit of a surprise. But either way, it was basically 50-50. Like it was a very, very small majority. The Wales wasn't taken into account either. Northern Ireland voted to remain in Europe, and they weren't taken into account either. It was just racist pricks in England were the only ones who gave a shit, the only ones that the government were prepared to listen to. And that's why ultimately those people have gone, well, if our national government isn't going to listen to us, what's the point in being part of this nation? And that's why you see the significant rises in support for independence for those places. And you've even actually now, there was the very small Cornish independence. Cornwall's the south west of England, which does have its own kind of cultural thing and all the rest of it. It's got its own language. Cornish is an officially recognised language and stuff. The Cornish independence movement has increased pretty significantly, albeit nowhere near a third in support, but they've definitely increased a bit. And there's now the Northumbria Independence Party. Northumbria is the sort of northeastern chunk of England, which has started up, which doesn't have like a massive support, but the fact that there wasn't such an organisation and now there is, again, is a further indication that the fracturing of Britain as a nation is very much underway. I do hope it doesn't go full Balkans or anything, but it's definitely breaking apart, man.
Have stopped as much virus getting into the country. But I tell you something, If you really think...
When Nigel Farage says the virus coming into the country, I think he means brown people. I don't think he means COVID. I think he means people of colour, doesn't he? To Nigel Farage, foreigners are a virus, I think. I think that's safe to say.
This government is getting tough on borders and getting tough on who can come into this country. Just think about a few other little news stories this week.
Little news stories.
Haven't caught your
Little news stories. Dickhead.
attention. Let's start with Yasser al-Siri. Now, this guy's absolutely...
I can tell from the font this is a Daily Mail article. Convicted Islamic or even Islamic terrorist sentenced to death for plotting to kill Egyptian Prime Minister. Quote, is on the verge of winning 27-year battle to stay in UK. Yasser al-Siri first claimed asylum in the UK following a failed assassination plot. He was turned down but has fought the measure for more than 2 decades. An appeal court has ruled in the terrorist's favour if he took refugee status. Okay, hang on. Let's get that article up, shall we? Hang on, what was it? Sorry. Convicted Islamic terrorist. That's convicted Islamic terrorist. I like the autofill because of the thing before. Convicted Islamic terrorist, Welsh independence. Sentenced to death. Let's see if that brings up the article in question. Yes, it does. So there you go. I told you it was a fucking Daily Mail article. What did I tell you? What did I fucking say, people? I said Daily Mail. There it is. Convicted Islamic terrorist sentenced to death. A terrorist who claimed asylum in Britain after he was sentenced to death in Egypt for a failed assassination plot is set to win his right to stay in the country. Now, I just want to point out, everybody, did I click? Oh no, I clicked on the thing. Bollocks. Anyway, I don't want to look about Harry fucking Styles or Olivia Wilde. Good lord. Anyway, bear in mind this happened in what year? 90. What did they say? 94. So that would have been under the Egyptian leadership of what was his fucking name? Mubarak, Hosni Mubarak, right? Who was a horrific, brutal dictator. So you could argue there's a legitimate reason why one might want to take more robust action against such a leader. Obviously, I disavow, because violence is always, always bad. Naughty, don't do it. But I can understand why some people might, take that kind of thought in their mind. Also, in terms of convicted Islamic terrorist. Now, that's an interesting phrase. We'll see if they bring up this man's views in the article, because we'll have a little read through. Why not? It's only nearly 3 a.m. I got nothing better to do with my life. Anyway, when they say Islamic terrorist, that could be a really concocted phrase, because they were convicted by the government in Egypt under Hosni Mubarak, who was known for torture, who was known for beating confessions out of people, and who was known for political repression. So I don't know that you can trust that conviction for anything. And Islamic terrorist, he might just be an Islamic person who was convicted, potentially wrongly, certainly questionably, by the government of terrorism. So that might be a really concocted thing. Anyway, a terrorist who claimed asylum, blah, 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 right to stay. A failed assassination plot is set to win the right to stay in the country. Yasser al-Siri, 58, first claimed asylum in 1994, but was turned down and taken the issue to court more than 8 times at a great cost to British taxpayers. Yes, that's the thing that we need to worry about in terms of British taxpayers' money. Not, the huge corruption that the government you support, Daily Mail, who have spent billions on their friends to provide services that they have not provided. Anyway, where are we? Al-Siri, who was also charged in the US with assisting someone involved in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, has appeared in several tribunals since. Last week, a tribunal decided he was entitled to remain in the UK as a refugee. Hang on, a refugee? Okay. The Sun reported Justice Phillips said any failure to follow through must be capable of enforcement by the High Court. He added, "It is unclear to me as why that should not be the point when the Home Secretary first ignores such a determination. The Home Office is clearly considering its next course of action. Al-Siri was a member of Egypt's Islamic Jihad in 1993. The group attempted to assassinate the then Prime Minister using a car bomb outside a girls' school. A 12-year-old was killed in the blast, and he was sentenced to death in his absence. Despite his arguments, he played no part." Again, that conviction is... I mean, the actual thing, if it killed a 12-year-old girl, that's fucked up, obviously. But I don't know that you can trust that conviction. No, I don't know. Maybe El-Siri is a piece of shit. I have no idea. Following the death of 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden, Al-Siri was quoted saying, "The Al-Qaeda leader met his God willingly, but in an unplanned manner, and he died an honourable death." In 2003, he defended Taliban propaganda videos of an American vehicle exploding. Former Tory MP Patrick Mercer, who is a prick, described him as Yasser al-Siri is a dangerous individual. Well, he might be a dangerous individual. I don't know. But it's the Daily Mail, so take all of that. Take every single thing with a pinch of salt.
Charming. He is a convicted terrorist. He says that it's actually the duty of Muslims to pursue violent jihad. Now, the Home Office want to deport him, and yet he's fought court case after court case. It's cost the taxpayer.
Let's do jihad. I'm joking, of course.
£2 million. And this week, the appeal court have decided...
I just want to point out this motherfucker has taken millions of pounds over the course of his life as a member of the European Parliament from UK and indeed European taxpayers for expenses, much of whom was spent employing his now ex-wife as a secretary for him. Yeah. But he really cares about the £200,000 for the thing. Shut the fuck up.
That this man, despite his views, despite the danger that he represents, this man will be allowed to stay in the United Kingdom as a refugee. We can't deport him because of, yes, you guessed it, it's the Human Rights Act, the European Convention.
Yeah, so what? Okay, I mean, if we have to keep a few wrong-uns in order to be not a shit country, that's fine. Yes, his foreign ex-wife, yes, he married a German. Which, I mean, is the worst of all things. Not only has he got a slightly French-sounding surname, because it's not Nigel Farage, or Farage. Farage would be a fine English name. Farage sounds decidedly French to me. So he's got a French name and married a German. Like, I don't know why he's got a British passport, frankly. I think it should be taken off him. Terrible. That's a joke, by the way, in case anyone wants to clip that.
On human rights. Or we could go to a man called Dosku, Dini Dosku. He's 35 years old, and he lives in Orpington, so all very cosy, you might think. Well, he this week has been convicted to 7...
Albanian drug lord, 35, deported from UK 3 times is jailed for more than 7 years for running Deliveroo-style cocaine delivery service in Kent. That's amazing. Deliveroo-style cocaine delivery service in Kent. Oh, what a sentence. What a timeline, man. Fuck me. Drini Dosku, 35, was the leading light in the professional drug delivery service. Sorry. I know that's still illegal, I know, but it's just a funny sentence. Fucking hell. Deliveroo. That's phenomenal. Also, we know that most people who take cocaine are like upper and middle class cunts like Nigel Farage, but whatever. The 35-year-old illegal immigrant snuck back into the UK 3 times since 2011. He took on a managerial role in the managerial. He was regional director of Deliveroo drug style enterprise. He took a managerial role in the. Well, it's good that this drug delivery company, I'm going to call it a company, allows people career advancement. You know, he was just an undercover. He was just a grunt, minimum wage grunt, and then eventually worked his way through hard work. He pulled himself up by his bootstraps and got into a managerial role in his company. That is to be applauded, Nigel, surely. He took on a managerial role in the Class A drug Deliveroo-style enterprise. Who are they quoting saying Deliveroo-style? Father of two from Orpington, Kent, sentenced to 7 years and 2 months. Yeah, who are they quoting saying Deliveroo-style? Let's have a look. Albanian drug load. There we go. Again, Daily Mail. Not a surprise. I think probably the only paper Nigel Farage reads. Apart from maybe, does the Daily Stormer actually publish a newspaper? I don't know. Again, they're quoting someone saying Deliveroo style. So who actually said that? Was it the police, maybe? Okay. So he was again deported. In court. Oh, so someone said this in court. Who's that? I don't know, presumably the prosecution. In some ways, it worked like a takeaway food delivery service, such as that provided by Just Eat or Deliveroo. Only they would supply cocaine, not takeaway food. There you go.
7 years in prison for running quite a sophisticated cocaine delivery operation. But here's the point. This Albanian has been deported 3 times from this country, has come back every time. He was released from prison in 2014 on the released early, of course. Released early, of course.
I just want to point out that Nigel Farage has been violent towards his own UKIP members in the past. Didn't go to prison for it, though, because, rich white man. Smug rich white man.
Understanding that he would go back to Albania and never come into our country. And time and again, he's able to come back in and set up his drug supply operation gangs. What are we doing at our borders? How can we allow people who've been deported to come back here?
Because we've got a massive coastline and it's basically impossible to police, you daft bastard. It's really easy to come into a country like that. It's really fucking easy. We've seen that.
On 3 separate occasions. And
also, I just want to point out, this prick did an alliance thing, albeit unofficial, of course, to stand down his members so that Boris Johnson would win a massive landslide, and Johnson hasn't done anything about this. So it's his own fault.
Flying into the country at the moment, even from one of the non-red list countries, or you're leaving, you're driving out through the Channel Tunnel for argument's sake, you've got to have a COVID test certificate and all the rest of it. And yet, reports have come to me from ferry companies in the last 2 weeks that van loads of people are coming into the United Kingdom, 10, 12 at a time, some coming from EU countries, quite a lot coming from Romania, but there are others coming from non-EU countries, vans full of people with kids, with dogs. Whether the ferry companies are actually doing sufficient checks, I don't know. Quite why these numbers are coming in right now, I haven't yet got to the bottom of, but it does seem to me to be part of the laxitude of the whole thing.
Laxitude.
Now, last week we talked about Napier Barracks, and I've been there and done a video.
By the way, I just want to point out, when he's talking about this, he doesn't give a fuck about the COVID potential for these people coming in, because he was saying the exact same shit before COVID. COVID's just a polite excuse for him, because he's also supported these fucking anti-lockdown protester scumbags, so, fuck him. He's full of shit. Again, I would take the right wing far more seriously if their answer to every problem wasn't shut down the borders. Literally, I stubbed my toe, shut down the borders. I forgot to put milk in my tea, shut down the borders. I stepped on a Lego, shut down the borders. Like, I can't take you seriously because you don't act like none of the issues you're raising here you give a fuck about. You just want to stop brown people coming in, which makes me think I want brown people to come in and cough in your fucking face, Nigel. You prick.
Unbelievably, today, in court, there are six people who entered the United Kingdom illegally by boat, have gone to court this morning. And their argument is that Napier Barracks must not house illegal migrants, asylum seekers, because the...
Just put them together. Asylogrants. Why not? It would save time with you saying it every single time, Nige. Kevin is a cosmonaut. Nice callback. But again, I want underneath the fucking... when it's done. I am a cosmonaut, though. That is true. That is true. Gagarin still owes me 5 rubles. Prick.
The conditions aren't good enough and aren't up to scratch with the European Convention on Human Rights. I mean, it almost beggars belief.
No, it doesn't beg a belief at all, Nigel. Those barracks are not fit for human IMI seekers. Yeah, absolutely. Those barracks are not fit for human habitation, really. Some of the conditions that have been described are unbelievable, genuinely evil. Like when the British government, said they wanted an Australian-style immigration system, I didn't realise they literally meant turning turning our immigration system into treating these people like cattle, like animals, because that's precisely what we're doing now. Like, we haven't set up a Nauru-style island for immigrants to like kill themselves on, but we're basically doing a similar thing, just mainlanding it, you know.
But that is going on in court today. And you can bet your life.
A Sarosmonaut. Yes. Oh, praise be upon him from the fucking moon.
That the next time we get a spell of calm weather, the dinghies will start crossing the channel again, and not a single person will be turned around.
Good. Good, Nigel. I want so many brown people in this country that you start crying. Good. I want all of the brown people to come here just to annoy you personally. Not even to annoy all racists. Just Nigel Farage. That's enough for me. The fact that it also pisses off all the other racists is super awesome. Cherry on the cake. But just to annoy Nigel Farage, I want all brown people to come into the country. Literally all of you. All, I don't know, fucking 7 billion or whatever. Not 7 billion. But 6 billion, 5 billion, whatever. All, come here. Just come, yeah. It'd be fun. I mean, it'll be a bit packed. We'll have to squeeze in a little bit, but I reckon we can manage it. Fuck yes.
And sent back. And here's the problem. Yes, we've got Brexit, and I'm delighted about that. But when the Prime Minister tells us
I'm delighted with that. Eat my ass. Also, yeah, when your biggest problem is there are 4 people in a rubber dinghy, like they're the big threat to you, are they? Not like the corporations, which Nigel Farage has worked for as an investment banker, who are fucking over the country enormously. No, it's the 3 people from fucking Libya who have been shat on, partly by Western imperialism, yay, go team, who want to come into the country and like not get murdered. They want to not be murdered. That's their main goal in life is, can I not be murdered, please? And they're the big threat to you. Fucking Christ.
taken back control of our borders, well, only up to a point. Because what we haven't left the European Convention on Human Rights, which was put into law.
Yes, we haven't left that because it's shit to do so. Like, it would be an appalling thing to do so. And this is, by the way, what we meant when we said during the referendum conversations that one of the reasons you should stay a member of the European Union is this is what these right-wing scumbags want. They want to remove your fucking rights. Because the European human rights doesn't just protect the incredibly dangerous fucking 5 people in a dinghy thing, but it's the left that are like weak, but it's fine to be scared by like 5 emaciated virtual corpses washing up on the beach of the UK, apparently. Anyway, it also like guarantees you a trial. It guarantees you a fair trial. Like there's stuff like that in the European Human Rights Act that Nigel also wants to get rid of, it would appear. Because he's not exactly saying, well, we can replace all of it, but we just get rid of the dinghy stuff. Not that there's specific mention of dinghies in there, but, you know, hopefully the point remains. They want to weaken and water down human rights legislation. They want to weaken, water down and get rid of workers' rights and health and safety legislation and all the rest of it. They want to get rid of food standards and animal safety standards and stuff. These people are fetid garbage. Know that. These people are fucking awful.
For the Human Rights Act, we're still subject to judgments from that European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. And that is damaging our ability to get rid of dangerous people, including terrorists, from our country.
Oh, is that the reason we can't get rid of you, Nige? Shame.
Making it very, very hard.
By the way, I
wasn't saying send people back.
I wasn't saying he was a terrorist. I was just saying he's a dangerous person. And there's no doubt he is. He's been engaged in stochastic terrorism, no doubt. Literally the day he unleashed his infamous breaking point poster, which I suppose I should bring up, because I keep forgetting that a lot of my viewers, especially at this time of the fucking morning here in Britain, breaking point poster. A lot of the people watching me right now won't actually have won't necessarily know all of this, but this was the poster. Hang on a minute. I need to put that on the screen for everyone, don't I? That there, right? This is a poster during the European election campaign in 2016. He put out this poster, right? So this was on the side of like a big lorry. This was like the launch of the poster, and it was up all across the country. Breaking point: the EU has failed us all. And then a snake of brown people. Which have they got the comparison to the Nazi film The Eternal Jew, if I recall correctly? And this is a snake of Jewish immigrants who the Nazis were trying to dehumanize, and it's very similar aesthetic in the UKIP propaganda to Nazi propaganda. So that's pretty shit, but on brand, I suppose, for Nige. Anyway, the point being, the day he released that poster was the day that the terrorist murdered Jo Cox, who was a member of the British Parliament, and whilst shouting Britain first, he shot and stabbed her to death. There was a political assassination in the streets of Britain. Those two events, while seemingly unconnected, I think are very much connected, in that Nigel Farage has pumped out stochastic terrorist propaganda for decades into the British media. The British media have been complicit in that, because the thing to do, just like with Trump, is ignore them. They want publicity. They need publicity. Publicity is the oxygen that allows the fire of fascism to happen. Okay? And the British media have been complicit in that. He's been putting out white nationalist, stochastic terrorist shit into the British media, making incredibly weak-minded, stupid people very fearful and hateful towards immigrants. Not just brown people, that has to be pointed out, because they've also been going at like Polish. There was the thing about the Polish plumber, which was like they're coming over here stealing our jobs. So there wasn't just brown people, but largely brown people. And then this guy goes and kills someone who very much believed in all of that shit. So, yeah, he's a stochastic terrorist in that respect, but I don't think he's actively engaged in actual terrorism himself, was the point I just wanted to clarify for, my lawyers have told me to say,
Across the channel to France, which, of course, unless you hadn't noticed, is a safe country, so there's no reason why anybody should come here and claim refugee status.
You say that, Nige. Have you seen the way they treat migrants in France? I would say it isn't a safe country. To be honest, I don't think Britain's an enormously safe country considering what we're doing to migrants either. But there we go. I mean, this is just one of these arguments that gets used because they just don't want them here. It's not that they care about the safety of migrants. Clearly they don't. If they did, they would welcome a larger number in. Also, the number of asylagrants, as I think we coined them rather sillily. Sillily? That's not a word either. It's fucking late now. My mind's melting. Anyway, yes, the number of immigrants that Britain has taken in has been vastly dwarfed by the numbers taken in by virtually every other major European nation. In fact, can I find those numbers? Immigrants by country, Europe, maybe? Is there a table for me? Immigrants in Nordic countries? No, is there just a... Oh, for fuck's sake. Which European country has most immigrants? Switzerland. There you go. So we're not even the number one, but is there a... Oh, that'll be an EU thing, so I'm not sure Britain will be a part of that anymore. Oh, no, there we are, yeah. Okay. Yes, so we took in total immigrants. What years are these from? Up to 2018, okay. 604,000, right? Germany took in 893,000. Spain took in 643,000. Didn't France take in quite a number as well? Oh no, France didn't take in that many actually, 386. But there were countries ahead of us in terms of this. Switzerland, a much, much smaller country, took in 150,000. So I mean, we don't even take in that many by comparison. And there are other countries like in the Middle East, because the thing is, most of the people who leave, like say the Syrian civil war, don't really travel outside of the region, because they eventually want to go back. So the countries around them, like Lebanon and Turkey and Iraq and places like that, have had huge numbers of immigrants. Like we're talking millions of immigrants from that conflict, whereas Britain has had a tiny little trickle of people. So the idea that we're being swamped, nowhere else is taking these immigrants, it's only Britain, we have to take them on our back and carry them around like taxi cabs. Like, no, it's just a lie.
From France, we are hamstrung, and it doesn't matter how loudly Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, proclaims that she wants to get tough. She wants to do these.
You can tell how much of a piece of shit Nigel Farage is that he thinks Priti Patel is weak on immigration, when I think she would happily deport all people, including herself, from the country. I think she literally would. She'd be okay deporting every person in the country to the centre of the sun or something. I don't know. And she's one of the most smug pricks in the world.
These things. We have got to have a debate about the European human rights regime. And you know something? This country doesn't need any lessons from Strasbourg or elsewhere about liberty and about freedom. We've actually put together...
Yeah, well, I mean, no one's actually trying to lecture you on that, but Nige, you twat. We've seen your anti-burqa stuff and things like that. We know you're not for freedom, so don't pretend that you are, chap.
Over the years, the best and the fairest judicial system in the world. But...
Oh, God, I hate this. The thing is, Nigel Farage does the really annoying thing of trying to do, like, British exceptionalism, but even most nationalists here don't do British exceptionalism, because we know it's not true. We don't have the best or most impartial judicial system in the world. That's obviously a lie. That's so obviously a lie. Now, don't get me wrong, it's better than a lot of countries. I'm not going to say that for a sec. I'm not going to, like, be silly or partisan about it, right? It's a lot better than some fucked up... some very, very fucked up places. But don't pretend it's the best in the world. That's just a fucking outright lie.
Because of human rights, it seems to me that the rights of bad people often are now superior to the rights of good people.
Based on what? What the fuck is that based on, Nige? Can I ask you, my man? What are you talking about? Honestly, what the fuck are you talking about? There is no fucking way that you can make that statement seriously and with a straight face. There's just the idea that the bad people's rights outweigh the good people's rights. Like it's so stereotypically what Nigel Farage does. It's so stereotypical of what the British right does. Of like, they'll simultaneously say, like the thing actually with the COVID vaccine that they've been going mad about, they're giving it to immigrants and blah blah blah. Firstly, good if we can save the lives of people and have them come into the country and not spread COVID. That's positive. But secondly, you're the same people who have been attending these anti-lockdown things, saying COVID's a lie, COVID's a hoax. They're trying to microchip us and give us 5G up the arsehole because of with the injection. Bill Gates wants to come round and rape your dog while injecting you with cancer, but also then saying, why aren't we getting our cancer microchip 5G injections? Why are they giving it to the Muslimics? Like, it's so ridiculous. You can't have it both ways, you fucking prick. It's a nightmare. And they do. It's sort of impossible to satirise people like Nigel Farage because he literally does the thing. Like when you do you can't. They're gonna punish. They're gonna put you in jail for saying you're English now, right? As like a joke to try and satirise their hypersensitivity to things. And then they'll come out and say shit like the rights of good people are outweighing the rights of bad people are outweighing the rights of good people with no evidence. And they're doing the thing. They're being the absurd, snowflakey, sensationalist dickhead that we joked about him being for years, but he's just doing it. That's what he is. Anyway, let's get through this.
And I know that no media organisation is campaigning on this subject, and I know that most MPs...
Apart from, you twat, you just read the headlines from two Daily Mail articles. Daily Mail have been doing this. Whether you want to call it officially campaigning or not, they've been campaigning against brown people for fucking decades. And before that, they were campaigning against Jews. Look up Hooray for the Brown Shirts, an actual headline from the front pages of the Daily Mail during the time where Hitler was rising to power.
If you write to them about it, will do their best to try to ignore you. But just think about that little series of stories.
I hope people do ignore
showing
you,
our
Nigel.
total level of impotence. We need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights.
No, we don't. Nigel Farage is scum.
And then Brexit will be complete, and then we will be...
Brexit will never be complete. To these people, Brexit will never be complete because they can just extend and extend and extend what they said, or what they now say, is Brexit. They can just extend it. We voted for X, Y, and Z thing to happen, even though they never said that. They said the exact opposite in some cases during the thing. Like, they campaigned saying, no, we won't leave the European Court of Justice. That won't happen. But no, that's fine. And then as soon as Brexit, the vote went through, yeah, we have to leave the European Court of Justice. We have to leave this. We have to leave that. We can't have any connections with them whatsoever. Let's cut ourselves off and float ourselves next to Iceland. Like, it's just ridiculous. They'll just continue to extend it until they get everything they want. Until we become like... Pardon me. Until we become a deregulated Ancapistan shithole. That's what they're after.
Be actually genuinely in charge of our borders, and you can come and live, work, and settle in our country.
Oh, fuck off. You don't. The only person you've ever accepted coming into the country was your wife, who's the German. Or ex-wife. She divorced him, naturally. Anyway, so yeah, that was Nigel Farage. I hadn't planned on doing Nigel Farage, but it appeared. The EU Human Rights Act was doing its thing, and I don't even have an image to go to. Okay, well, you'll just have to look at my notifications then. Anyway, I do have an image to go to. What am I talking about? Boom! There he is. There's the lad. Oh, outrageous. Only joking. Anyway, hopefully that made everyone sick. fuck me sideways. Anyway, fuck Nigel Farage. Everything he said was wrong, obviously. Anyway, thank you for listening and watching and supporting my channel in general. All of the links are below to the Twitch and the YouTubes and the Clips channel and the social media, and you can support the channel financially via the Patreon, PayPal and Streamlabs links. They're all below. You people are delicious. Thank you for sticking with me at this frankly ungodly hour. It's a disgrace. Anyway, on Twitch, I'm going to kick you over now to someone. I don't know who's doing anything right now, but we'll have a look. Left flank vets. Have a listen to what they're up to. They're goodly peeps. Anyway. So I'll send you over there and I'll say thank you all for listening and watching. I'll be back technically later today, UK time, at 7 p.m. With Christy to do a regular happy hour type dealio. Thank you all.